My name is Gavin Evans, and this is my review for Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. This movie's bad. It's absolutely terrible, and I'm going to say it here. It is the worst MCU movie. It it's a complete disaster. It's a complete embarrassment for all involved. And I just could not care less about this universe. And if I'm being completely honest, I actually was looking forward to this movie. The first trailer looked fun enough, but the second trailer, it looked like they were giving Scott a proper arc, some real motivation. It looked like there might be some real emotion in it. And it looked like it might be brutal, intense, and I even thought to myself after watching that trailer, is Scott going to die? Is that how they're going to establish Kang as a serious threat? And I got really excited for this movie. And now it's like the second worst reviewed MCU movie, which is well deserved. Um, just that trailer is a complete misrepresentation of what this movie is because it gives Scott character motivation that isn't even present in the movie. So I didn't like that. But before we get talking about all the specificalities of this movie, let's talk about Kang and how he's utilized in this movie, and I thought he was terrible. There's nothing about him that makes him feel like the next Thanos. He just feels like the next generic villain. You know, there's one line where he's like to Scott, if you don't do this, I'm going to kill your daughter and make you watch it again and again for the rest of eternity. And that's about as hardcore as he gets. It's just really dumb, and there's one moment involving ants, and all I'll say is that any bit of menace or threat just instantly vanished in that moment. And like all this multiverse and timeline stuff is just complete nonsense. I could not care less about it. And it's just like so much of the future of the MCU was riding on this one movie, and it blew it. I went in hoping to like it, and my expectations, my excitement for the future, with the exception of any Guardians of the Galaxy or Doctor Strange movies, just dropped. Whoop! Do they? I don't care. I just don't. And as an actual movie of itself, there was just nothing to it. It has zero weight behind it. There is no growth. Like, the movie goes out of the way to point out how Scott is exactly the same at the end of this movie as he is at the start. And it just feels like nothing happens, nothing mattered. It just feels like filler, if I'm being honest. And yet, it's its own movie. And the overall pacing and structure of this movie is a nightmare. I don't want to go too much into it because then I'm getting into spoiler territory. But they just make every wrong decision. Like, you watch the trailer and you see that Kang wants Scott to get something for him. And you'd think that'd be a big part of the movie, and it's not. And that's all I'm going to say. Just pacing wise and structure wise, I can't understand just why they did everything that they did. It's just so obviously atrocious to me. And this movie is boring. I was just checking my Fitbit to see how much time was left, and it felt an hour longer than it was, and I was just not into it. You also got yourself some hideous visual effects. Like, they don't look remotely good. When you watch a movie like Avatar 2, and then you go back watching normal blockbusters, they just stand out as even worse than they were before. There is one moment in this movie where we get introduced to a character named Modoc. And me and my brother both burst out laughing. It's Shark Boy and Lava Girl. It's shit. It's shit. Oh my goodness. And so much of the world building of this movie is reliant on the visuals, and it just felt so cheap. It felt so empty. It just did absolutely nothing for me. And some of the rules established here with the quantum force and all that are just a complete disaster, because the characters enter the quantum force and they don't age at all. Yet, some other things that enter the quantum force age like thousands of years, and it's just so made up on the spot. There's no consistent logic. So because of that, it's just like, oh, anything can happen because quantum physics or whatever. And it's just, it makes me not care. And not just with all that stuff, but even with like some of the action scenes, there are characters getting shot over and over again, and it's just doing nothing to them. So it's just like, what are the points of these blasters? Does it not penetrate human skin when it's like, when they're big? Like, what's the deal there? And it's such a big deal when Scott does turn big in this movie, but it's like, why? He is in the quantum verse. He is so small that just a little bit more height is nothing. So that was a bit weird. The action in this movie is truly terrible. It's a CGI train wreck. It is just way too much with no clear vision behind it. But it's also just very dark and terribly edited, and I couldn't tell what was happening half the time. And then we get to the cast, which I just didn't care for. I like Paul Rudd. I think he deserved an Oscar nomination for Wet Hot American Summer, and I'm not kidding. He's a great comedic actor, but I just don't like him in these movies because he's just too comedic. Like, if he gave a more serious performance and he gave moments weight, I'd be like, okay, fine, but he's always just Paul Rudd. So, it's just more of the same here. Catherine Newton, she replaced Emma Foreman, which I have to say was done real dirty. I thought Emma Foreman in her 1 minute of Avengers Endgame was actually quite impressive, and I don't like it when studios do obviously shitty things like that, but I do like Catherine Newton as an actress. I thought she was good in Big Little Lies, Freaky, Blockers, 3 Billboards. Good actress, terrible in this movie. Not an ounce of personality or charisma, and her and Scott just had zero chemistry. Jonathan Majors, he's the one everyone's like, oh, he's so amazing. Yeah, he's not. I just do not care for King. If he's the next Thanos, like, I think the writing is a huge drop in quality, but I just don't think he elevated this character in any way. Yeah, really don't care. You got Evangeline Lilly, who was done dirty in this movie. Like, I think she has like 5 lines, it feels like. She has zero presence at all. Zero. And I don't know. I've got my theories on that. That's all I'll say. But then you've got Michael Douglas, who I also kind of forgot was in this movie. He has nothing to do. Michelle Pfeiffer, I didn't really care for her performance here. You've got Katie M. O'Brien, who I didn't like at all. She doesn't stand out. She just feels very generic, and her character is just very empty. You've got William Jackson Harper, who's just given the same joke to make over and over again. It got old real fast. Bill Murray, he's barely in the movie. Corey Starr. Like, to be fair, there's nothing he could have done. He's not good in the movie, so and yeah, I don't know, that's all I really have to say. Just this movie was shit. Oh, and also the humor was really bad. It didn't make me laugh once, and it has zero emotion in it. And one more thing I should mention is that so much of the writing in this movie is exposition. It's just people explaining one thing and then explaining another thing and just rinse and repeat the entire movie. Like, if you cut out all the exposition, I swear this movie will be like 10 minutes long. Like, everything is just getting explained to you, and it's just way too much and just a case of just terrible writing. And they're socialist ants, but whatever. This movie was, I'm trying to think of what word to use. Terrible, horrible, atrocious, abysmal. Either way, it's pure shit. I'm struggling to think of anything I like in this movie. Like, there's potential. Me and my brother were talking about all the different directions they could have taken with this movie throughout, but especially in the end, they could have had a really ballsy ending, but they played it safe. So there's potential. I like how language works in the quantum force, and that's about it. It's terribly acted. There's zero emotion, zero weight behind anything that happens. It just feels like filler, but still doing a terrible job at setting up the future of the MCU. I've never cared less. It's a bunch of convoluted nonsense in moments. The action is bad. The pacing and structure are just atrocious. Look, this movie's... Don't watch it. Don't watch it. See Titanic. See Avatar. Don't watch this. So I'm going to go ahead and give Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, I'll be nice, a 1 out of 10. That means it is legitimately in the worst 5 comic book movies I've ever seen. And I truly mean that. So, take that for what you will. But have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania? What did you think about it? Let me know in the comments down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for some more videos soon. And Gavin, out.